Maria and I are here today to talk about poverty. More specifically, we're here to talk about leaving poverty. I'd like to start with a little bit of statistics. The chart on the screen shows the poverty rate in the United States of America for the last 50 years. You'll notice that the poverty rate has not changed in the last 50 years. There's no overarching upward trend or a downward trend. The poverty rate has cycled in a very narrow range for that entire time span at somewhere between 11 and 15% of our population. So what that means is that, on average, 1 out of every 8 people in our country lives in poverty. For those of you that don't know what poverty is in terms of from a monetary perspective, in 2019, the federal government says that if you are a single mom and you have 1 child, you're living in a 2-person household. If you don't work at least full-time, making $8 an hour, you are living in poverty. We'll leave for a separate discussion why the minimum wage is less than that. So I would say that based on these statistics, it's reasonable to say that there's room for innovation in the way that we address poverty. And Maria and I are part of a group that is attempting to do just that here in Carson City. We belong to a group called the Capital City Circles Initiative. It meets weekly. It has been meeting weekly in Carson City for 10 years. At this meeting, we have a shared dinner, we have childcare, we have an educational component, and we have a community building component. By the way, the Capital City Circles Initiative is part of a nationwide movement that's called Networks USA. There are 2 groups of people who attend our weekly meetings, and groups is not the right term, but I'll stick with it for right now. But one group that attends, and we intentionally mix these groups. There's no separation between the groups at the meeting. So one group of people is people who are in poverty, like Maria was when she entered the program, and who would like to change. The other group is, those people are called champions, champions of their own life, champions of the change that they want to make. The other group of people is people like me, who tend to be middle-class people. Our role is to facilitate or to be a support network for the champions while they change their lives. And the term that we use to describe folks like me is an ally. So with that as a background, I'll turn the stage over to Maria.
Hi, Mom. I'm sure she's going to see this. So, my mom was a single mom with 5 kids, working nonstop day and night to make sure we had everything we needed. And she always lived day to day, month by month, week by week. It wasn't ever saying that we were going to have anything extra than what we needed. And somewhere down the road, I also followed her footsteps. I have a beautiful daughter, which I adore, and I found myself in a very frustrating situation when I first arrived to the program. I didn't really have a vehicle. I was working nonstop, 40 to 60 hours a week, and it wasn't enough. I was living with my brother from the moment I left home, always afraid that I couldn't handle it on my own. And so I was frustrated, isolated. My boss used to tell me, hey, if you hate it here so much, then why don't you move, or why don't you find something else? Well, how do you find something else when what you have is barely making ends meet? So that for me wasn't an option. When I got to Circles the first day, I honestly didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to look at anyone. I never talked to my bosses or authorities because I figured they were above me and had more control over my life than I did. So I really kept to myself for about 2-3 years in the program, believe it or not. Jon once told me they had an ongoing bet to see when I would actually speak and and say what was actually on my mind. And at the moment, I was like, yeah, right, not gonna happen. Go figure. I'm at TED Talk. So it's been a long road with a lot of wonderful people that if it wasn't for this program, I would have never met.
Maria's circumstance when she arrived at Circles is very common it's quite familiar to see somebody show up at our meeting for the first time and have them not look at anybody in the eye when they talk to them. There's a lot of looking at tables, very little talking going on. And I always would think about that. And it's like, why are these people who are down and out, down on their luck at this point in time, why are they behaving that particular way? And I always compared that to the way that I behaved when I've been down and out. I mean, I've been flat broke 3 times in my life, but never on those 3 times did I get to the point where I wanted to isolate myself, where I felt like pulling away. I felt like I didn't have a voice, like so many of the circles participants have when they first arrive. And so as I thought about that, I thought, well, why is that? And I think the conclusion that I came to was that the primary reason was because of the people around me. When I was down and out, all my friends, all my family, they all assumed that this was a temporary situation. And therefore, I assumed it was a temporary situation. There was no need to change my behavior relative to the outside world. And so I think a good summary of my thought process relative to the difference between somebody who has known poverty and how they behave and how I might behave looks something like this. Poverty is as much a lack of relationships as it is a lack of money.
Every week we talk about something different, and honestly we talked about things I'd rather avoid. Like, I never thought of money as there was an emotional attachment to money. It was nothing I ever thought about. I just always thought I didn't have enough of it, right? So we learned that. We also learned about goals, SMART goals, and how to create goals to realize your dreams. Well, the last time I had dreams, I was in high school. So that turned out great, didn't it? So I came to this program trying to find dreams again, or creating goals, or learning how to detach my emotional feelings for money from my reality. But one concept that I continue to use to this day is how to identify the people that will be my allies and my accomplices. My accomplices are people that have an idea of who they think I am, who they know that I am, and therefore will never be anything more than their image of me. And then there's my allies, who will support me in changing and bettering the situation, and be okay if I'm not the same person that I first was when I got to meet them. And to this day, I continue to use that. There's a lot of situations I can give you where I've had to use that skill, but one that constantly is in my mind is I was struggling with school, work, and my daughter. My daughter was acting not the great behavior you want from your kids, and and I didn't know what to do. And so, like most people, you talk to those you love, right? And I went and I talked to my sisters and my mom and told them the situation. And my sister says, the moment you decided to have kids, that's the moment that you forgot about everything that is important to you. The only thing that matters in your life is your daughter. So do what's best for her and just forget about what you're doing. And so I was determined to do that. But I went to meet with my allies, my mentors, and now my friends that I adore and love. Thank you, Stephen Sable, for always being there for me. I really do appreciate that. And so they told me, I know it's hard right now. I know that it seems like it's the wrong choice to make, but continue to go to school and go to work, and she will appreciate it further down the line. And if it wasn't for those wise words, a lot of the changes I've made wouldn't have happened to this point. And they did this for me and continue to do this for me throughout, and I appreciate that.
While Maria was learning how to interact with somebody who grew up under different circumstances than she did, I was learning how to be a good ally. When I first started in the program, I thought that an ally was sort of like a teacher-student relationship, that I had information that the people who were in poverty didn't have. I would transfer that information to them. They would thank me, incorporate it into their lives, and everything would be fine. I soon found out that that was not correct. What I discovered was that people in poverty are every day accomplish 10 to 15 times as much as me as a middle-class person even thinks about doing. The last thing they need is a little add-on work assignment or a couple of words of wisdom from somebody who's not living that in very intense lifestyle. But there's two things that I can do to be of service to people who are trying to change their lives. I can be true to myself, and I can be present. In being true to myself, I can present an image or a possibility of a different way of thinking about a problem or a different way of approaching a certain circumstance. And by being present, I can show myself as a person that's not going to go away when they change. As Marie described earlier, sometimes your accomplices, they're really comfortable with where you are now. And if you actually make a true change in your life, they will leave you. As an ally, I can identify myself as somebody that I will not do that. I will be there after the change, giving you just as much support as I gave you before you started to change, and that has value.
My advice to anyone that finds themselves in the situation I was is to take a deep breath and put yourself in a situation that make you really uncomfortable, like the one I'm in. But make a friend, make a friend on purpose. Make a friend with someone that has the life that you may think you'll never have, because you'll be surprised. Or those people that live the life you want to live, and just stretch out your hand, be open to what they have to offer, resources, friendship, and change your life and see life as a challenge that you can conquer, not some obstacle that stops you in your tracks. My allies taught me that if you can't get through something, then go around it. If you can't go around it, go under it. And they always did that for me. But my mom also said, and she still says, tell me who you are, tell me who you're with, and I'll tell you who you are. And so with those words, do as the saying says, find people that you want to be like.
And my suggestion to anybody who wants to help somebody change their life is identical to what Maria just recommended. Step out of your comfort zone, go make a friend with somebody who you might not normally associate with. They're everywhere. At your school, at your work, at your social organizations, at your church, you will run into people who are living in poverty, since 1 out of 8 of us do. And some of them will want to change. You may recognize them by the fact that they won't look you in the eye when they talk to you. They may not look up much. But that person might really benefit from having a new friendship that can support them changing their life. And so I would ask that if you are of a mind to do such a thing, please do that. Go make a new friend and change a life. Thank you.